attention skills aren't very well.
And we'll try to straighten these out for you. So we're going to solve a word problem with two unknowns, which means we're going to have two variables. Whatever that first guy's name is, where'd they come up with these names? Hulan? Hulan's age is 3 times Thomas's age. I like Thomas much better. I can read that.
It's probably Tomas.
Tomas. The sum of their ages is 44. What is Thomas's age?
15.
So, two different unknowns. Or two guys. I'm just going to assume that that first one's a guy anyway. And I haven't heard of too many girls named Thomas, but these days you never know.
Maybe it's supposed to be Julian.
Maybe.
Because the J is right behind that next to the A.
Is he a Spanish guy?
Oh,
We
but
call
I
him
thought we just concluded that he was Spanish.
Julian and Tomas.
Tomas.
So, when you're reading this first sentence, whomever or whatever is mentioned first is the variable that's going to be set equal to something else, because they're talking about Julian. So, H is, H equals 3 times Tomas. So I would write that as
44? I'm just guessing.
3 times Thomas's age. How do I show?
H3 or 3H?
H equals 3
Divided by? Minus.
Times?
times what?
44?
44?
We're not to that sentence yet.
3 times T.
T.
T3.
Oh.
So not T3, but how about 3T? This person's
okay.
age is 3 times Thomas's age. So H equals, H is 3 T's.
T.
Now when we have two variables, we have to write two equations. We only have one equation there, so we have to write a second equation. Thus, the second sentence. The sum of their ages is 44. Sum means we're going to add. So we're going to add those two people's ages. So I'm going to say H plus T equals 44, right? Sum of the two ages. So we're going to call this, or solve this, by doing substitution. We know that the H is equal to 3 T's, so we're going to get rid of the H and put 3T in its spot. So that means our equation says 3T plus T equals 44. Well, 3T plus T, I can add those together. They're like terms, right?
4T?
Is 4T. So 4T equals 44. Well, we know how to solve that equation. What do we have to do to solve that?
Divide.
Divide, exactly. So if we divide by 4, T is equal to
11.
11. What is Thomas's age? We found T. Thomas was 11. 11. I don't know why she put age behind it. I would have put years old or something like that.
11?
Yep. Thomas is going to be 11.
Thomas is young.
Thomas isn't very old. The other guy's 3 times that. He'd be 33. He'd be older. Number 2 then. A total of 357 tickets were sold for the school play. They were either adult tickets or student tickets. So we know we're going to do two unknowns. I'm going to say that my A is my adult tickets and my S is my student tickets. Because I like to use variables that make sense to me instead of just using an X and a Y and then getting to the end and not knowing which one's X and which one's Y. So even though my S looks like a 5, I'm going to use it anyway. So if I look at that first sentence, it says a total of 357 tickets were sold for the school play. They were either adult tickets or student tickets. How can I write an equation that shows that?
357 equals A plus S.
Exactly. 357 tickets. Total was by taking the adult tickets plus the student tickets, and that's how I got that number. Now I have to write a second equation. the number of student tickets sold was 2 times the number of adult tickets sold. So which one was mentioned first?
2S.
S. That tells me I'm going to write S equals something.
Oh.
The number of student tickets, S, that's what I'm talking about. What's it equal to? 2 times A, or just 2A, right? 2 times the adult tickets. So now thinking about that previous problem where we solved by substitution, what variable should we replace in our first equation?
S.
The S, and what are we going to put in its spot?
2A.
2A. So we're going to cross off the S, we're going to put 2 A's in its spot, and then we're going to combine our like terms.
3A.
357 equals 3A, exactly. And in order to solve that, we're going to divide by 3. And I'm going to let you use your calculator to do that.
119. Right?
I don't know, I didn't divide it. Sounds good. 119. Christine, that what you got?
Yep.
Yep, okay. Now we did get A, that's our adult tickets. The question wants to know how many adult tickets, so that's got to be what we had, 119 adult tickets.
Okay, so when we write it on here, we write all of that.
Something like that. You probably don't have to write this down, you can if you
Yeah.
want, but that other part you probably have to write.
Okay.
So the third one, now we're going to deal with hamburgers and cheeseburgers. A local hamburger shop sold a combined total of 649 hamburgers and cheeseburgers on Friday. How do we show that as an equation?
649 equals H plus C.
Exactly. A total of 649 hamburgers and cheeseburgers. Now this one's a little trickier to write, but we did these the other day. There were 51 fewer cheeseburgers sold than hamburgers sold. The whole key is what one is mentioned first.
Cheeseburgers.
So I'm going to start my new equation with C
Minus.
equals something.
Equals H minus
C?
51.
H minus 51, right? 51 fewer than the hamburgers. Nope, because it doesn't say 51 fewer than twice the hamburgers. Oh, you mean when you substitute it in? Yes, I haven't done that yet.
Oh.
You're ahead of me.
Sorry.
You're way ahead of me. So, when you're doing this second sentence, whichever item is mentioned first, that's the one C equals. And then you write it in terms of the other variable. Now, she already substituted it in and combined her like terms and everything, but she said, oh, I got to put that in for the C, which is H minus 51 there. And when she combined her like terms then, she said, oh, I got an H plus another H, so I have 2H minus 51 equals 649. She's just way ahead of me. Now, in order to solve that, we're going to add the 51, which gives me 700 equals 2H. And when I divide by 2, $700 divided by 2 is
350.
350. So 350 is equal to H. How many hamburgers? That's what we're looking for, right? How many hamburgers? So noticed on all of these ones there was a sum involved, and then we wrote the other one and substituted it in, right? All of them had a plus in the one equation that we plugged into. Let's look at the next word problems. They say we're going to have a decimal word problem. Going to have some decimals in there, so a lot of times dealing with money. Keisha purchased a prepaid phone card for $25. Long distance calls cost 18 cents a minute using this card. Keisha used her card only once to make a long distance call. If the remaining credit on her card is $18.88, how many minutes did her call last? So our question wants to know how many minutes. I'm going to use M for my minutes because I like to use variables that make sense to me. So I want to think about what's going on. She got a phone card. The phone card's value to start with was $25. She's then going to use her card. So when I use up the card, I'm going to subtract value off of it, right? I'm going to subtract at a rate of 18 cents a minute. So how do I show 18 cents a minute?
18 over 60?
Nope.
No. A minute is 60.
18.
No.
We're getting
18
closer.
over M.
Not over M though. What do we have to do with the 18 since it's 18 cents?
18M.
This is $25. If I use 18M, that would mean $18. 0.18. I'm going to take 18 cents times the number of minutes I talk on the phone. Right? If I talked on the phone for 10 minutes, I'd have to take 18 cents times 10 minutes to figure out those charges.
18.
After I talked on the phone, I had $18.88 left on my card. So, in order to solve that, what should I do? Minus the 25, move that over there. So I have negative 0.18 M equals, and if you take 18.88 and you minus 25,
Negative 612.
negative 612. Notice we had a negative and a negative, so we're going to end up with a positive answer because we're going to divide by our negative 0.18. And how many minutes did she talk on the phone then?
34.
34. Okay, that makes sense? So, number 5 sort of looks like that one. Jane received, I like Jane. Jane's a nice, easy name. Jane received an $80 gift card for a coffee store. She used it in buying some coffee that cost $8.08 per pound. After buying the coffee, she had $47.68 left on her card. How many pounds of coffee did she buy? So what might we want to use for the variable?
P.
P for pounds? Works for me. We want to write an equation. So she started with
80.
$80 on her gift card. She's going to buy some coffee. So we're going to minus
8.08 P.
$8.08 per pound. When she was done,
47.
she had $47.68 left. So, if we're going to solve that, the first thing we're going to do is
Subtract 80.
minus our 80. Move that to the other side. So negative 8.08p equals
32.32?
negative
Yes.
32.32, you said?
Yes.
And then in order to solve that, we're going to divide. Negative divided by a negative again gives us a positive answer because we know it has to be positive. How many pounds?
4.
4 pounds of coffee.
That's agreed. Oh, that's positive.
So, number 6, for his long-distance phone bill, Bill pays a $7 monthly fee plus 7 cents a minute. Last month, Bill's long-distance bill, was $17.99. For how many minutes was Bill billed? Man, who would put Bill and billed in the same sentence? We're looking for the number of minutes again, right? So I'm going to use M. Bill pays a $7 monthly fee plus 7 cents per minute. His bill was $17.99. What would my equation be?
7 plus 7 equals 17.99.
Exactly. The $7 monthly fee plus 7 cents, 0.07 M, equals $17.99. So if I'm going to solve that, we're going to subtract out that $7, right?
10.99.
So 7 cents M equals $10.99. That's the extra I spent above my monthly fee, right? Then I'm going to divide that by 7 cents. So how many minutes?
157.
157?
Yep.
So 157 minutes. That's a lot of minutes on the phone. I guess that was for a whole month.
Not for my phone.
It'd be for my phone. That I don't even carry with me. It's in my coat pocket most of the time. All right. Word problem involving rate and time conversion. A car travels at an average speed of 52 miles per hour. How long does it take to travel 221 miles? Now, some people can read these and know if they should multiply or divide, because that's what you're going to do is multiply or divide. Sometimes you might have trouble figuring out which ones you can do. So in order to set the problem up, you can do it as a proportion. This says a car travels at an average speed of 52 miles per hour, which means 52 miles in 1 hour, right? I go 52 miles in 1 hour. We want to know how long it takes to go 221 miles. Since my miles are on top here, I would want the 221 miles on top here, and I'm finding how many hours it's going to take me to do that. Right? We did some proportions in that review section. So in order to solve a proportion, we cross multiply. This would give me 52x equals 1 times 221, which is 221. And you can see, oh, in order to solve that, I end up dividing. Now, when you divide these ones, they're not going to come out to nice whole numbers. Divide that out for me. What do you get?
4.25.
4.25. That's 4.25 hours, but the question wants to know how many hours and how many minutes.
4 hours and 15 minutes.
Exactly. 4 hours and 15 minutes, because 0.25 is a fourth, right, of 60. If you think of your clock, well, you think of the clock back in the olden days. There's my clock. So 0.25 is the same thing as a fourth. That's 15 minutes, right? 15. 0.5 is the same thing as a half. That's 30 minutes. 0.75 is 3/4, which is 45 minutes. And then, of course, you're up at 1, which is your hour. So my conversion, if I had to do it, would be to take that 0.25 times 60, because there's 60 minutes in an hour. And if you take 0.25 or a fourth of 60, you get 15 minutes. But if you know them well enough, well, that was easy. She knew 0.25 was 15 minutes already.
I did time sheet for 5 years.
Ah, there you go. A copy machine makes 28 copies per minute. How many copies does it make in 5 minutes and 45 seconds? So again, if I set up a proportion, 28 copies in 1 minute. We want to know how many copies, and here's the spot. I've got 5 minutes and 45 seconds, so I want to change that 45 seconds into a decimal. So I'm going to use 5.75. 45 minutes and 45 seconds is still in the 60, but what I could do is take 45 out of 60. 45 divided by 60 is 0.75. So we're going to use 5.75 here. So I changed my 45 seconds into a part of a minute. And now in order to solve that, I'm just going to multiply, right? 1 times x is x, so all I have to do is take 28 times 5.75. When I cross multiply, 1 times x is x, and then I got to do the 28 times the 5.75. Right, if I do 28 copies in 1 minute, if I'm going to find out how many copies in 5 minutes, I would have to times by 5. In this case, we're doing 5 minutes and 45 seconds. So 28 times 5.75 gives me
161.
161 copies. So 28 copies in 1 minute, 161 copies in 5 minutes and 45 seconds. So number 9 says a car travels 276 miles in 5 hours and 45 minutes. How many miles does it travel per hour? So my proportion, 276 miles in, and how am I going to write 5 hours and 45 minutes? $5.75, right?
Yep.
So 5.75, that's hours. We want to know how many miles per hour. Per hour means in how many hours? In 1 hour. So we would say 5.75x equals 276. And guess what? We end up dividing. So if you take 276 and you divide it by 5.75, you get
48.
48.
Yeah.
So I went 48 miles per hour. I went 276 miles in 5 hours and 45 minutes. I'm going 48 miles an hour. Now the other ones, these ones were all hours, minutes, and seconds, is your day. Just going to find a different marker, but I'll use this black one. If I think about a day, a fourth of a day, 0.25 or 1/4. How many hours are in a day?
364.
In a day.
Oh, what am I? That's a year.
How many hours are in a day?
24?
24. So a fourth of a day would be how many hours?
6?
6. A half of a day would be 12, and 3/4 of a day would be
18?
18. So if they're talking about hours and days, then you want to think of it like this. Minutes and seconds, those are normal ones. But every once in a while they'll throw in with hours and days in there.
Let me write that down.
0.5 is a half, 0.75 is 3/4. So a fourth of a day.
And so on and so forth there.
All right, the next ones are finding the length of the missing side if you know the perimeter or the area of the shape. So in that review section, we did all those squares and rectangles and all of that good stuff. It says the perimeter of a square painting is 272 centimeters. How long is each side? If I have my square, and I call the side S, all the way around that square would be
272.
272. 272 would equal how many S's then?
4.
4. all the sides are the same, right? So 272 equals 4 s's. And in order to find out what one of my sides is then, all I have to do is
Well, divide.
divide by 4. If you take 272 and you divide that by 4,
68.
68. So each of those would be 68 centimeters each side. The area of my rectangular garden is 4,617 feet square. The width of my garden is 57 feet. What is its length? So I have to think about my rectangle. How did I find the area of that rectangle? Length times width. So if area is length times width, I know the area is 4,617 and I know my width is 57, then 4,617 would have to equal length times 57.
That's a lot.
In order to solve that, what would I have to do? If this is multiplying here, when I move it over, I'm going to
Divide.
divide. I'm just going to end up dividing by 57. So if you take 4,617 and you divide it by 57, you get 81.
I think I messed up my calculator.
You did.
Yeah. It's on G.
It's on G instead of something else.
I was on.
Fixed mode. Mode. Normal. Oh, you're not normal. We'll
Oh,
put it
thanks.
back.
Thanks, Linda. Why is everybody picking on me today? First it was Lori. Now
So
it's
we
you.
know that here, if I took 81 times 57, I would get the area, right? Number 12. This time we're doing the perimeter of a rectangle. So what do we know about the formula for perimeter of a rectangle?
The perimeter.
Perimeter of a rectangle.
I'd have to go back and look at my notes.
Well, what do we know about a rectangle? This is my width, and this is my width, and this is my length, and this is my length. And if I'm doing perimeter, what do I do?
Length times width.
That's area.
Oh, that's there.
2 times length times 2 times width.
2 lengths plus 2 widths, right?
Okay.
I have 2L plus 2W. That's my formula because I have 2 lengths and 2 widths if I add up my sides.
I have a cheat sheet.
So my perimeter
I
is
do.
354. She does. I think she got it from Jane.
I did.
The length is 95. So we would say 2 times 95, and we need to find the width, and so we got to leave that as 2 times W. But we know these two sides are both 95, right? So, if I'm going to solve that equation, what should I probably do first? Take the 2 times the 95. So 354 is equal to 190 plus 2W. These two sides add up to 190. Now we're going to subtract my 190. 354 minus 190. 154 equals 2W. What? 164? Is that what you said?
154.
I think she said 164. Is that what you got, Christine?
Minus
Yeah. That's 64.
164.
164. So we have 2 sides left. We want to find out what one of them is. We end up having to divide by 2, right? $164 divided by 2
82.
is 82. So these 2 sides are 82. These 2 sides are 95. And if you found the distance all the way around the outside, you get 354. So, thinking about that same idea, now they're going to throw some variables in there. The perimeter of my rectangle below is 132 units. Find the length of the side PS. So 132 units is the distance all the way around, right? But we know when we have a excuse me, a rectangle, we have to do 2 lengths and 2 widths because we have 2 sides that are going to be 5y and 2 sides that are going to be 4y plus 3. So they're going to say, okay, I'm going to do 2 times 5y and I'm going to do 2 times 4y plus 3. My perimeter, 2 lengths plus 2 widths. And it doesn't really matter which one you call the length and which one you call the width. So if I'm going to solve that, 2 times 5y would be 10y. 2 times 4y plus 3 would be 8y plus 6, right? And so adding my like terms, I'm going to get 132 equals,
Do we drop that? No, we don't drop that down and subtract it, right?
well, we will in a minute, but first we're going to do that.
Okay, so 18y.
18y plus 6. And now we're going to move that 6 over, right? So subtract the 6. 18y equals 126. And then I'm going to
Divided by 50.
divide by 18. What is y going to equal?
7.
7. Now, the question did not tell me to find y, did it? What did the question tell me to find?
The side of the PF.
The side PS. The side PS is equal to
40.
5y, or, well, not 40,
I'm sorry,
5 times 7, and 5 times 7 is 35. So 35 is going to be my answer, right?
Why is there a line up above PS? Is there a reason for that?
Because it means line segment, because I'm finding the side. A line technically goes on and on forever, so they put that to mean that it's just a part of a line
Okay.
that stops.
Just asking.
That's why that means. That's a geometry thing we're not going to worry about too much. So, the perimeter of my quadrilateral is 64 units. Now, since it's not a square or a rectangle, we don't have a special formula. We know to find perimeter, we're just adding all the sides up, right? So we're going to say 5 plus 4y plus y plus 2 plus 5y minus 3
Holy.
has to equal my 64 units.
So then you do like terms.
So we're going to combine all our like terms and shorten this mess up here, right? So if I add all my y's together, how many y's am I going to get?
10.
10y. And if I add my numbers together,
5, 6, 7, 8, 4.
4 plus 4 equals 64, right? So 4 plus 1 is 5, and 5 plus 5 gave me 10, and then 5 plus 2 is 7, and 7 minus 3 is 4. Now we have something that looks a little more familiar. I'm going to do what to solve that?
Subtract 4.
Minus my 4, 10y equals 60,
Divide by 10.
and divide by my 10, so y equals 6. Now this one does say find y. It didn't go back and say find side whatever. They don't even have their sides labeled. Just said find y. So we're done. We found y. And the last one on this homework page, again, I have a perimeter. I'm doing a triangle. We don't have a special formula for a triangle. We just add up all the sides. So if I know my perimeter is 64 again, what should my equation say?
3y plus 2y plus 3.
Equals
Square.
64. Well, this time I only have 3 sides on my list instead of 4. If I combine my like terms, I'm going to get
6y plus 4 equals
6y plus 4 equals 64. That looks pretty familiar to the one above me. We're going to minus our 4. 6y equals 60. And divide by 6, so y equals 10. Now this one doesn't say find y, right? This one says find the side vx. So vx would be which side?
3y.
3y, which means I'm going to take 3 times my y value. 3 times 10, 30. Going to be the length of that side. All right, was there anything too terrible out of those 5 kind of problems? Just a little bit? All right, so we only put 5 on there because I know most people don't like word problems. So now